Hello everyone. Welcome to the Art Lounge Alley. This is Coloring Comics, part 37. I am your host. And this is what we're going to be doing today. Something that I was working on last week. It's actually been a while. I had to miss actually not last week, but the week before. Last week I had to miss Coloring Comics. I got sick, but fortunately it was just a couple of days. But here's an opportunity again. And I'm really looking to, at some point, expand this opportunity. I want to be able to draw. Where is it? Okay, I see it. I want to be able to color, not just draw, more often. Because once a week is really not enough. You know, for the rest of the time, I'm actually working on other projects. During the weekend, I'm working on the special streams for you guys. And if you guys haven't checked those out, actually, you could do that by heading over to the video section and filtering the videos based on collections. So once you filter it on collections, you'll see a folder for each stream. There'll be a folder for Coloring Comics. There's a folder for the project stream. But there's a folder called Highlights. And over there, you guys will find a lot of the special streams. So yeah, I'm looking to like open up my schedule a little bit more, but that's probably going to be some time. And maybe at some point with these projects that I'm working on, I will be transitioning to doing things more traditionally, like coloring more traditionally. But the number one important thing, I think, when it comes to all this stuff, whatever it is, whether it's traditional, whether it's like digital or coloring or inking or penciling and stuff, is scheduling. Like making drawing a priority, like brushing your teeth. You know, it is absolutely essential. It's absolutely important for you to do that before you consider anything else. You know, if you're really serious about getting good, really improving and learning stuff at a much faster pace, that's what you got to do. You got to really schedule things out. You know, you only got 24 hours within a day, and 8 hours of that is going to go to sleep, right? Preparing food. So you got to take into account all this other stuff and recognize how much time you actually have. You know, if you're working, that's another like 10 hours, right? So you were going to school. Both of those require around that same amount of time, if not more. So you really got to think about like, well, how much time do I have? And utilize that time. You know, make sure that you really spend as much as you can towards drawing. And make it a habit every day to sit down at this time, no matter what, and practice. Whether it's inking, whether it's coloring, whether it's, you know, sketching and studying the figure, and you will see great results. So right now I'm just preparing on this canvas here with all these colors, these primary colors that I'm going to be using for mixing and such. These are great, actually. I haven't talked about this for a minute. Dr. P.H. Martin's India ink. I got an entire set of these bad boys. You guys could check out the review. I actually did a review comparing India inks to watercolors. I was doing watercolors before. These are India inks. These panels are India inks. That is watercolor, something that I switched over to not too long ago. These are also watercolor. So in a special stream, in the highlights folder, as I was talking about earlier, you guys can find the review. I'm talking about like the benefits, like what are the key differences, what are the pros and cons, and I absolutely love India inks when it comes to this stuff. One of the best things about it is, and I didn't think I would like it, is how quickly it dries. It dries so quick that it adds a protective layer on paper, so it gives me room to actually play around with color. Like, let's say I do this, I color this, and I'm like, nope, that's not it. You know, I still need to add some whoops, that's yellow, it's not white. I still need to add another mixture. You know, I need to play around with colors and see if I can get a better tone, right? Well, you could do it because it dries so quickly, and you don't have to worry about like the paper actually becoming soggy or warping or, you know, any of that stuff. And you're not mixing the colors, so it dries quick and it gives you an opportunity to put a fresh new color on top of it. So it's not muddying up any of the colors really, and that's excellent. That's such a useful technique. But yeah, I'm going to be using all these colors, so I'm just kind of dabbing a couple. I only need to do a couple of drops. I don't even have to do a lot. You know, I don't have to pour a lot of it, which makes this excellent. And they're also vegan. You know, before I was reading about India inks, and not all India inks are. There's some that, well, there's like some stuff in the bottom. There's some that use shellac, which is like beetle stuff, beetle parts. But I got in contact with them recently, and they replied to me, and they said, nope, nothing in our product has animal parts in it. So I was really relieved. I was happy that they were actually doing that, because I honestly hate shopping and having to like dig for all that stuff. Like, I'd rather sit and draw. You know, I don't want to waste my time going through all that. I'm just really happy that they said that it doesn't. No, that's not quite it. That's too brown. But perfect opportunity for me to show you guys what happens. I'm gonna say there's like, it's so different here because it's pixelated. You know, it's not actual paint. These are like dots that, at the time, this is what printing presses were like. They just had dots that would form on a paper, and I think because of the how thin newspaper print was, they had to do like these, it's like stamps basically. So they're stamping the paper rather than actually having like fresh ink on it, and that allows the colors to stay on there without warping the paper. You know, as I mentioned, that's something that happens. So there are a bunch of little pixels, and it's kind of hard to figure out, like, what is that? What color is that? Like, that is brown kind of, but it's a little bit of gray, I want to say, like a greenish gray. I didn't go through the process completely of adding all these pigments, so I'm gonna do that. 2 drops of that. And all you need is like 2 drops really to work on like an entire page. You just need 2 drops. That's how great these are. Make sure you close them tight though. I'll say this is something that was weird. You know, I had another one. This is black ink. And as you noticed, it like dried up. So you really have to make sure it's a tight lid. You know, you're keeping it closed. And I think they just eventually just evaporate by the nature of the seal. You know, this, I'm going to say it's the nipple. It's not, there's some air that goes in and out. So, you know, as you could see, like there's certain areas that are open to it. So eventually they kind of dry out. But I've had this for a very long time. I'm going to say at least 2 years, maybe a little bit more, before it got to that state. So, and at the rate that I'm using it, I don't see that being the case this time around. So I'm gonna say like a little bit, well, there's also some blue there, so I'm gonna shake it up, make sure all the pigments are active. All right, so let's do a little testing here. It's definitely some white, some brown, white mixed together. And since it's dried already, look at that. It's not mixing. It's not muddying up that color, so it works. I'm gonna say it's just a little bit of brown there. Got this rag right here, which is important, very important, for lots of reasons. Maybe you end up really screwing up the color. You could quickly wipe it off rather than having to paint or wait for it to dry. You could just wipe it off with the rag, and most importantly, you could clean your brush out. Is this process, all of this, worth it? Absolutely. I really like that I am disconnected from the screen. You know, despite looking over from time to time to check you guys out, see what you guys got to say. For the most part, I'm just focusing on the paper, you know, and on these mediums. And it's an experience. They feel very much different from, you know, having to paint or work on plastic. You're using like a tablet, and it's usually either glass or plastic on plastic. Ooh, that's a little too much there. It's too much black. Yeah, this experience is very different from that, and I really enjoy that. Probably You know, I'm working off of this panel right here, so I'm gonna need a little bit more yellow, I think. It's a little too key lime there. Or maybe like a tiny smidge of red, I'm gonna say. Now, a way to clean these India inks is some rubbing alcohol. And that's all that you really, that's all you really need when it comes to cleaning these palettes, which I gotta do. Yeah, it's a process. See, it's like what I was talking about. Is it worth all this? Absolutely is. You just have to remember all this stuff. You know, to clean out the brush after you're done, because this stuff does harden. And something that's also really cool, actually, that just came to mind as I'm doing this, that you don't get as much with digital, is this, like, mixing effect. You know, that's not, like, you put a little bit, you could see, like, this gradation, right? This natural gradation going from, like, more of a green to, like, a yellowish green. That's just something that happens naturally with the brush. You got a little bit of these colors on there, and you get like various tones coming from one brush stroke. Whereas with like digital, you kind of have to like mix the colors using some other tool, like a smudge tool or something. You know, after you put in a solid color, so you pick a yellow, then you put in a red, and then you use a smudge tool, or you know, you start like taking samples and mixing them more and more until you get like this gradient. Whereas with the brush, it's just in the brush itself. If you dip the brush into yellow, a little bit of red, a little bit of green, you kind of have these various colors in one brush stroke, which is pretty cool. Just something that you could see right over here, and even in here. And that variation gives this really cool effect that I like. Maybe it needs a little bit of that green there. I don't know, I need a little red there. I'm trying to work off of like the previous red. Like I had a couple of dabs there of red, and I'm trying to see if I could bring it back to life again with some water. And so far, it's very, very little result. Oh. But I'm okay with this. As I mentioned, this is like the first layer. I could go back and do another layer, and it's not going to damage the drawing at all. But it does have this cool kind of effect, right? Like there are all these various greens and yellows there, so it kind of makes the scene pop out a little bit more. I'm going to move on to doing some metallic work. Which is like, it has some blue in there. It's like a green, not a green, it's like a gray blue, I'm gonna say. So I'm just gonna mix around some white with that color and see. Nope, too dark. And you guys could also check out, actually, when I was talking about special streams, you guys could also check out the very first stream of Coloring Comics, where I talk about like this process, what it was like back then, why it looks the way it does, and how much work went into actually coloring comics back in the day. It was a huge process, and the cool thing about it was that it created all these jobs. You know, where, like, if you guys go back and check out that video that I created, it's a short flick. What they were talking about was, back then, because comics were booming, and when I say back then, this is like 1930s, late 1930s or 40s, that in order to mass produce all these comics, they hired people like literally off the street. Nobody really needed a lot of experience to do this. So you were hired, you were put into these like studios or factories or whatever, and they basically gave you a table. They gave you like these vials of colors, and everything was color coded. So you would basically sit down and create all these images that would later be sent over to the printing press, and then the printing press would pump them out, basically. But it was so cool that anybody really was able to just jump into the comic book field, you know, get in the studios, get familiar with the people and with the industry, and get themselves into the business, whereas that's not the case anymore. It's become more and more exclusive, I believe. The more things became automated. Lady Suja says there's such a high barrier to entry nowadays, webcomics aside. Yeah, you know, it's I mean, in some ways it's this dichotomy of, like, on one hand it's becoming really difficult for people to get in because there's so many people out there who are going for it, who are gunning for that industry. But at the same time, because of the internet, because of things like, you know, Kickstarters, because of things like webcomics, as you mentioned, more and more people don't have to rely on only that as being an opportunity or an indicator of whether you can actually, you know, be in that industry. You know, like, you could start your own stuff, you know, you could start streaming, you could produce all that work and eventually make great living off of it. You know, so in some ways it's like, it sucks, it's frustrating, because if that's something that you really aim for, the bar is really high. But it's not the only outlet, and people would get disheartened by things like that, I think, in the past, where if like they applied for, let's say, to work in Marvel, or they applied to work in DC or any of those big names, and the companies didn't answer or something, people would be like, oh, then I must not be good, or I shouldn't pursue the career then, or whatever else. And I find that to suck. Like, I don't think that's a great way to go about things. So I'm happy that now there are these other outlets that could keep people motivated to do stuff, like keep going, you know, do it regardless. And I think really, and in some ways it's probably what the industry like Marvel and DC are kind of saying. It's like, if you really, really want it, you'll continue to work hard at it and push yourself to the next level and not give up, you know. So those, despite there being so many people now who are aiming for it, the ones who really make it are the ones who are determined enough, you know. And that really says, hey, you really like drawing, you know, you really like comics, you like the idea of creating comics. So I get that, you know. I think that it makes sense, even aside from those companies, like putting those companies aside, not talking about Marvel, just the idea on its own, you know, if you really like it, you'll keep doing it regardless, you know, whether it's popular or not, or you know, it's accepted or whatever else. If you're really into it, you're gonna stick to it. And if not, then that means you don't really like it that much, you know. It's not for you. You know, maybe there's something else that's gonna keep you as persistent and determined to do it, because sometimes people just give up on that. My thing is, I don't think that people should. I don't believe that people should give up on anything that they're really into, and should just continue to push themselves. Now, what does that say as far as like competition goes? Probably brings up the bar even higher. But I think with where things are going, they're always evolving. You know, technology is always evolving. The internet is always evolving. You know, there are things that people never thought would be the case, that it is now. They didn't expect it. So I think it's always changing, and it's giving people more and more opportunities. Like, the idea of streaming, I think, is excellent, because it opens up opportunity for everybody to find an audience. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to fit within what's popular. You know, there's some stuff out there that I'm not into, but they have a fan base, and they're able to actually keep going with that, you know. And I think that's great. You know, even though certain things might not be my taste, the fact that somebody else is able to create an audience, create themselves a career out of it, awesome. And I'm all for that. If things could be less, like if more and more people could do what they want to do, despite it being really saturated. That's great. You know, let it be saturated, but as long as people are able to continue to push their dreams and continue to pursue what they want to do, that's what I'm really rooting for. I think this is a little too dark. I'm gonna have to come back to it. Yeah, it's a little too dark. It needs to be a little bit more on the bluish side too. You guys are gonna see how pliable this is. Like, look at that. I just painted that area and already it's dry enough. And look what cool effect it has. Because it dried, right? Like, I could just add just a little bit of this other color while keeping the previous color around, and it creates like this dark shadow there if I wanted it. I love that. Whereas before with watercolor, if you wanted to do that, it becomes really messy. And the colors bleed into each other and your brush gets dirty. Super quick drying, man. Yeah, like look how well that blended into even the color before it. Giving it this like gradual, you know, really light into more of a blue. Ooh, speaking of webcomics, actually, it just popped into my head. And this goes out to Lady Suja. It is Mr. Lovenstein. Did you ever hear of that one? He has like, it's like webcomics and it's 4 panels usually, and he has like a secret panel that you could click to. It's very clever actually, the way he did it. He would have like these 4 panels that would have like a story of like some comedic sort of theme going on, and then it would say like, hey, click on this link, and then when you visit that link, it opens up like a secret panel that completes like a punchline or something of the joke. And really simple lines, really simple line work, funny looking characters, but what I really love about his work is the face expressions. Like, because of he just nails it down so well. Whatever it is that the characters are feeling or certain emotions, I think he gets that. And I think it kind of highlights the idea of like how great art can be, right? It's not just about how detailed it could be and how like excellent in anatomy something is, or the panels are, the characters are. It could be just something about how well they capture a face expression or motion or a body language. And I think that's what he does really well. he captures all that through his line work. And because he's been doing it for such a long time, his line work gets better and better. Like, it doesn't get more complicated, it just, there's more fluidity to it. You know, it feels more natural. The body language is more natural. But yeah, check those out. Check out his Instagram. It's called Mr. Lovenstein. And you'll see it right away. It has like this funny looking cartoon face. Not a lot of detail for it. It's just like these big eyes. But the panels are hilarious, and you'll see what I'm talking about when it comes to like face expressions. And yeah, pretty much every single new one that he releases, and even old ones, they all have secret panels on there. So I think that's how he gets his audience. He gets them to visit this link to his other panels, I think, or other comics that he's doing. And I think a lot of his comedy is relatable. It's a little bit self-deprecating at times. It's heavy on the sarcasm as well. But they're a lot of fun, and they're hilarious. I always get a kick out of reading them. Lady Suja says, oh, but that's clever. You get folks to check out other socials than just the primary one. Yeah, he figured out a good method for it. And it's something it kind of pulls intrigue, right? It's not just what you see on Instagram that calls for you to like, okay, I saw it, now I'm going to flick further. It actually pushes you to like stick around with the material for a little bit, you know, click on the link, go to the panel, you know, check out that secret panel. Maybe you'll flip through other ones that he has on there. So it's a really good way to like pull the audience in. I remember like one of them was this guy is in hell, and Satan is there, and he's like, welcome to hell. And he has like a slice of pizza there, and he's like, here you will have your pizza slice, but when you eat it, it's incredibly hot and it's gonna melt your face off. And like the person who's in hell, he has like this very stone cold sort of a face expression. He picks up the pizza, starts eating it, and like Satan is laughing because he's like, you know, he knows what's gonna happen. And then the guy's face is melting off, and he just continues to eat it, and then you see like Satan's face expression change. He's like horrified because the guy's like still eating this incredibly scalding hot pizza that's melting his mouth, and he becomes worried about it. He's like, dude, stop. Like and the guy is like picking up the next slice in the next panel. It's really funny. And again, it's just how he narrates it, and the face expressions for all the characters really make the comics, make the panels. Lady Suja says, and the desperation for a good slice of deep dish. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that has happened, where it's just, you're so into it and the roof of your mouth is just gone. And the next day, it's a disaster. Yeah, so as you could see, there's like so much room to play around with wet mediums. Like, this isn't the thickest kind of paper. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I really love this sketchbook, is because it's pretty good. You know, you can't see through to the other side unless you really, you know, dig in there. But because it dries so quickly, it leaves so much room for mixing things around, playing around with colors. Do you have a favorite webcomic that you're into right now, Lady Suja? It's the only one that I could think of at the moment. I know there are other ones as well, but I'm always happy to like promote his work. It's really good. I think it went a little too dark there. Lady Suja says, in terms of webcomics, I was really into Paranatural a little while ago. I also am the biggest fan of any work by Cheerart. Their work was honestly one of the things that made me interested in like actually getting good at art at all. All right, I gotta check those out. That sounds like a really good motivator then. Must be really cool content. Uh-oh. Yeah, it's like bleeding over. This area is getting... I think I used some water on there. That's why it's kind of like bleeding over to the other side. Meow. Are those web comics on Instagram as well? Can you like go and visit their page and see what that's about? I'm gonna try to like, there's some areas that I don't want to go over because it's just not transparent enough, but I'm gonna try to like not put too much color and go over those areas. Most likely I'm just gonna have to revisit it with ink, with the brush pen, and try to redefine those areas. Lady Suja says, I think they're both on other websites. Paranatural was on Hiveworks last I checked, and Cheery Art hosts Cheer Art? I don't want to say Cheery, I don't think that's right. Host their own stuff. But what about you? Lowenstein aside, what webcomics are you into? That's a good question. I haven't really, I haven't ventured into webcomics as much. I think for me, I'm just focused more on comics right now. And my favorite one, and I actually did a little intro, is Outcast. It's by, I believe, Robert Kirkman and Paul Azaceta. Two of my favorites, Paul Azaceta being one of my favorite artists as well. Beautiful work. Might want to check that one out. And they're still going. The issues are still climbing up there. Excellent work, just all around. Stylized, and also he's able to, the way he draws figures, the way he draws face expressions, the way he draws the scenes and everything, it's very much similar to John Buscema, where he balances out comic and realism. You look at it, and the faces and all that, they have this very natural look about them, almost like a fine art quality to it, but it's not like hyper realism, and it's not something extremely detailed, but he just knows how to place down certain lines, how to place down certain brush strokes, and it is heavily stylized. It's kind of hard to explain, but you could also check that out. That's also in the collections folder for all the streams, and I did a little intro, and if you do a little bit of Googling, you'll see some of his artwork. It's fantastic. Really, really love that work. But yeah, I haven't really ventured into webcomics as much. It is Outcast. The name of the comic is Outcast. And the name of the artist is Paul Azaceta. But once you search that comic book, you'll see their names and artwork and all that stuff. And I'm excited for you, for you to be able to actually see this stuff, because I know when I did, when I saw it first in the comic book stores, it immediately catch my eyes. Not only is it about the artwork, but it's also the coloring. In combination with all that I just mentioned, the coloring is done so well. Absolutely love the colors, and it makes it. I think it's another very important element when it comes to comic books is the coloring, because sometimes, I've seen John Buscema's work, what you see on here, and somebody would practice coloring over it, and they would go into that very beveled sort of three-dimensional look. Just killed it for me. I didn't think it looked good. And there's been other times that I've seen black and white, just pencil work or ink work of a panel, and then once colors were on top of it, immediately killed it, and I lost interest. I wasn't as into the art anymore because of that. So it's it really shows how certain things can really destroy a comic book, or really make it incredibly appealing. So things like that. Color, just as simple as color, could determine whether the comic book is great or not, for me personally, because I know that some people look way past it. They're just oh, the story's great, and they don't even spend that much time on the artwork. But for me, that's everything. If the artwork isn't great, I'm not gonna be focused on the story at all. It's what comics are about. You know, if I wanted to read a novel, I'll pick up a book and I'll do that. I think comics really are heavily emphasized on the artwork. But you need both, because, you know, there's some comic books that are just super boring, despite like having amazing art. Just not into whatever it is that they're talking about. And I'm going to be doing another special intro soon, actually, of another comic book that I just recently discovered. You know, I started Comixology, even though I'm really pissed that Amazon owns it. Like, I really hope that other apps start to come about, because this whole monopoly thing is really frustrating. I'm really angry about it. You know, I hope that some other company comes around that's going to really take over for comics, that's going to be completely separate from all these giants, and that way I'd be happy about like giving them business, because right now, no way. Like, I don't want to give Amazon more and more leverage. But yeah, I'm working on another special intro to introduce you guys to a new comic book that I recently seen. And it's really beautiful work. The story is also really fun. So I'm pretty excited about that. Though it is going to take me a minute, because I'm still working on Gil Elfgren for you guys. That's in the making. That's going to be soon. I'm going to continue on to part 3 pretty soon. And I'm really excited about that as well, because I'm going to be introducing you guys to more amazing painters of that era, and just paintings in general. Beautiful work. Yeah, I'm excited about that as well. Alright, y'all, I'm gonna have to cut the stream here. Did a fair amount of work, could have done more. A little bit rusty, I'll be honest. I've been doing more digital coloring, and I am a little bit rusty when it comes to traditional coloring, so. But next week, it's going to be good to get back into the groove. I'm going to be making some more corrections, because this is the same color as the background, and I'm not happy about that. So I'm going to have to make some adjustments. It's going to be dry by then, so it's going to be very dry. So it's going to be even easier to make those adjustments. But yeah, I'll be back next Wednesday for more coloring comics. Tomorrow it's going to be the project stream at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 8 p.m. as always, it's going to be figure drawing basics, so make sure you tune in then as well, guys. Thanks for Lady Suja being in chat, asking some great questions. And if you guys do enjoy this content, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. They're both greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.